welcome to episode 85 of the Relationship Restaurant. We're Poppy and Jeff Spencer. We're delighted to have time with all of you again with Jennifer Billock. And at the Relationship Restaurant, we are all about heart-healthy communications. And we're going to have some of that with Jennifer right now.
So welcome, Jennifer. We're so excited that you're here. And we came across Jennifer because her articles, her beautiful writing resonated with us so much. We're fellow contributors to Your Tango and all about relationships as well. And one of the like four of the articles that she has written really resonated with us. And
she's also an author of books. I'm even going to show off one of her books here. Yeah, there you go. Which is exciting because we like restaurants in Milwaukee.
Yes. So welcome, Jennifer. We're so excited to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to our chat. And thanks for all the really nice things you said. That's so sweet. Thank you.
Isn't it exciting? You said, is that me they're talking about? Oh gosh, I sound so wonderful.
Of course. So tell us about you. What got you into writing or authoring, being a writing coach? Jen's also a writing coach.
Yeah, well, I've been keeping a journal since I could hold a pen. So like when I have all of them back to like when I was 8 years old. I've got every journal I've ever kept. Yeah.
Cool.
And I didn't realize until undergrad and college that I really wanted to be a writer because I had gone into college for music. I was a vocal music instruction major. And I had scholarships and everything. And then I student taught for a semester and realized that I absolutely hated it. So
hated the teaching?
I hated the teaching. It was horrible. I can teach online. And I teach an online food writing class and I do my coaching, but teaching in person is just too much pressure. And also I was teaching high school and that's just a whole different level of
dynamic. Yep.
Yeah. So after that, I changed my major and I was going to go to English, but I didn't know like what I wanted to do. And I more or less just flipped through a college catalog and said, journalism, I could do that. And then I realized like the longer I'm in this career that like, this was always what I should have been doing. Cause like I can name newscasters from when I was a kid. Like I had like, it's crazy. I've been reading the newspaper forever. Like, I don't know why I never thought about it before.
So who are the newscasters from when you were a kid?
Oh God. Well, there's Mark Giangreco. There's one on Channel 9. My friend just messaged me and was like, do you know this newscaster on Channel 9? And I was like, oh my God, of course I do. And I can't remember his name right now, unfortunately.
So Channel 9 is in the Chicago, Illinois area?
Yeah, Channel 9 WGN was like my jam. Yeah. I watched it all the time. But like I have also historical newscasters like Edward R. Murrows I love, and like Mike Royko and all of these broadcasters and journalists that I have always found completely fascinating. So
well, there you go. Well,
but I feel bad. I'm like, I can remember ththese people from my childhood and you're like, well, what are they? I'm like, I don't know.
No, we trust you. We believe you. Don't worry.
Yeah.
I know one of the things that got Poppy and I fascinated the topic of your articles, of course, and getting into the challenges of divorces. And I think you had the article was about being twice divorced, and we always have fun with this. We gasp. We go, "Oh my God, you're twice divorced!" Which, of course, Poppy and I are both twice divorced.
And
so we are quick to empathize with that scenario.
And we also like to make light of it, not to make
fun
light
of it,
divorce, but to ease up on any perceived stigma that either you get from yourself or you get from other people.
Mm-hmm.
There should be no stigma. There really shouldn't be. And
it didn't pan out for whatever reason. It didn't,
and we actually will take exception to people that say, oh, I had 2 failed relationships or 2 failed marriages. And it's like, no, they're not failing. Those were developing and growing as you were on a journey. And suddenly those, you came to a fork in the road and the partner, didn't want to go on your journey, or you didn't want to go on their journey.
In our cases, we both have children from marriages, and we don't want to say that that was invalid and not, because we have wonderful children.
So I think words are important, like how we talk to ourselves, but Anyway, so let's start with what do you think? Let's go back in time. What do you
Sure.
think your decision process was when you decided to get married the first time or the second time?
The first time I thought I was supposed to get married. I was 23. I was too young, but we had been in a serious relationship for a while, and people were starting to ask, "Oh, when are you going to get married? When are you going to have kids?" Blah, 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 blah. And I was like, "Okay,
Yeah.
this is just what I do. Like, this is what
Yeah.
you're supposed to do in life." So
Right.
And
we
I
got
shared with
married.
Jennifer before we started that I did exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
So I completely and totally get that.
Yeah.
Okay. And then do you recall if you had any doubts or red flags that came up before the first marriage or the second one?
100%.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
In hindsight, right?
no, I had, so my first marriage, he's a nice guy. He's just kind of boring. And I knew it at the time. I was like, he's kind of boring. Like, I don't think that this is going to work out long term, but I really want it to. And then and that was before we even got engaged. And then the day of the wedding, I tried to bail. I didn't want to
Really?
do it. Yeah. But my friends were like, "You just have cold feet. You're here. Like, you need to do it. This is really what you want to do. Otherwise, you wouldn't be in this position." And blah 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 blah. And I'm like, "Okay, fine." And I told my friend, like, my divorce is her fault because she forced me to go through with it. But I mean, I would have talked myself out of bailing on it anyway.
I think I'd give that advice to anybody who's, if they're getting ready to get getting ready to get married, and they have that feeling going in that they shouldn't do it, then they shouldn't do it.
Oh, trust
I
the
totally
feeling.
agree.
Because that's their gut going, danger, danger, stop, this is, and they feel like that. I know Poppy said this too. It's like, oh my gosh, but I have to give back all the gifts and everything else. Fine, give them back, whatever, don't commit to something that you don't want to do.
Yeah, and like looking back, I mean, I should have, like, it was an immediate, like, suddenly overwhelming thing, like, don't do this. This is the wrong choice. But I still did it.
Yes.
And I would tell, like you said, I tell anybody, you listen to what your body is telling you. Like,
Yes.
this is something important that you need to hear.
Exactly.
We've written about this in our book too, about how people just ignore the red flags. There's red flags all over the field, and they're like, they keep picking them up, going, I can deal with that. I can deal with that. Not a problem.
So how about, okay, so after the first marriage and divorce, then you entered another relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And how long after that was that relationship?
It was really, really quick.
Mm-hmm.
I got divorced, and then I started dating him, I don't know, like 2 months later. And then we were married, like we were engaged, like within 6 weeks. It was really, really fast.
Did you think that, this is a thing that Jeff and I facilitate a group for women, for our podcast listeners out there who are in narcissistic abusive relationships and are really trying to reclaim themselves, and get their self-worth back and trust themselves and their intuition, like you were just talking about. And so one of the things that's probably common across the board with these women is that they've entered into these relationships just like you were, with a good deal of vulnerability, and the predator and the narcissist just like, it's like a magnet. They just prey upon that, and that's
the weak one in the herd. Let's go after them.
They're sensitive, they're weak, they are full of empathy, they can be easily molded. And so do you think that was definitely a dynamic when you met
fresh
your
off a divorce
second husband?
I think so. I think that was part of it. And also, like, I had been unhappy in my previous marriage for so long that to finally be happy was just something I had like no comprehension of.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was the same thing. Like, I saw the red flags and I was like, no, that's fine. I'm happy. And I was like totally smitten with this guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure he showered you with attention and
yeah.
affection and gifts and everything.
How
100%.
How long was the first marriage?
Oh, that's a good question. 5 years, I think.
So was mine.
Yeah. That seems to be the breaking point, right? Everybody's first marriage, if it's not like a year or two, it's 5 years every time.
Okay, so then you get married again, and did you have doubts the second time when you were getting married?
No, I did not. I was
Okay, good.
all in, and like, as
Yeah.
I was like so smitten with him that I was just like looking, like overlooking everything.
Okay,
What made you so smitten?
He played guitar, which I found really attractive. He seemed at the time to be a friendly person who loved to go out and do things and hang out with other people. He was really like thoughtful and emotional and just seemed like he was really connected to himself as a person.
mhm.
None of that was true, but
Mhm.
But
I didn't
that's
know that.
that's the perception that they give off, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's what's so hard is that when people feel like, oh my God, I have been duped. Was I duped from the very beginning,
Mhm.
or was it just
hmm
somewhere along the way? And a lot of people find it is like, nope, you were duped from the beginning.
From
They
the
put it.
very beginning.
We've heard this over and over. They put on a great show. They just win you over, put on a great show, and then things start to change real quickly, and just
So
Yeah.
keeps chipping away.
when
And
do you
even
think?
now, people that knew him, like when I tell them what happened, people are like, "Oh, I thought he was a totally different person." And I'm like, "Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
it wasn't just me." Like, I guess
So
that
did
makes me feel a little better.
yeah. It
when
should.
were you the first one that noticed that something was wrong in the relationship with the
Or
second
others.
marriage, or were other people like giving you subtle hints?
Other people were giving me subtle hints, although I
Uh,
don't know which happened first because I
okay.
remember thinking like early on, like if he had a problem, he would turn it around and tell me it was something
Mm,
I was doing that
Sure.
was the problem. And I felt like, well, he's just really like projecting, like what's
yeah,
going on here. And it was like a
always.
really like a thought in my head, like this isn't right. Like I don't know what's happening. And that was really early on. And at the same time, I had a like because we went to high school together. I didn't know who he was, but he knew all of my friends, which was really strange. And also that was another thing like in my brain when we first met. I was like, oh my God, we're meant to be. Like we've
Right.
been on these same paths. It's just so serendipitous that we just never met each other and things like that. But I had like a couple friends were like, I hated that guy. He was a
Hmm.
jerk. And my
My favorite
parents,
word, dickhead.
yeah, my parents didn't like him. My mom was tried. My mom is a absolutely wonderful person and tried to
Steer
not
you.
show it. No,
Mhm.
she tried to be very welcoming and open and accepting, but I could tell that she didn't like him. And my dad is also an amazing, wonderful person, but much more blunt than my mother, and was like, "No, this guy sucks."
Oh,
Ah,
Like,
really?
yeah, like the first time he met him, he said, "Oh, I liked your ex-husband better."
Wow.
In front of the new one, and I was just like, "Whoa!"
whoa! Thanks a lot, Dad.
Yeah,
That's
I was
Okay.
like,
great.
"That's not cool, man."
No, I think your dad's
No.
awesome. I
But
think
yeah,
that sounds
he's
great.
very upfront with what he thinks,
I
and
love it.
it's part of my personality too. So I
That's great.
appreciate that.
No, I think that that's awesome. Okay, so what was there anything that struck out with you that your antenna goes way up in the first part of your marriage, or and I don't know how long you were married this second time. Oh, 6 years.
We
6 years, yeah.
6 years, yeah, 6 years and 2 weeks.
So how long, yeah, how long did it take you
Yeah, it's funny because the first when I asked you about the first marriage, you had a the second time you go, bam, here's the exact 4 hours, 72 seconds.
Yeah.
so did you when did you think in the second marriage that things were not you're not in Kansas anymore, that things are different?
It took a while. I had, like I said, the little red flags would come up every now and then, but I would just kind of push them back down. And then I would say maybe a year or two before he left, I was kind of like catching on a little bit and being like, something's not right. Like this doesn't feel right. But I still was, I was so in love with him. Like
Yeah.
I was so happy and like even when I shouldn't have been. So it was just like the entire thing, the whole end of our relationship completely caught me by surprise because I was
Yeah.
just like, what do you mean something's wrong?
Okay, so take our listeners through the timeline of in case they haven't read the article.
The
He was
timeline of the demise of our
on your 6th wedding anniversary.
Including the cat too.
Yeah. Okay. So, we got a cat from my neighbor. I don't know, like a year and a half after we had gotten married, and I picked out the cat. I loved this cat. I said, I want a black cat. I want that cat specifically. I need her. And so, we got the cat, and then a couple years later, the cat was getting older and loved us both, and she was so super cute. And he started doing, he started composing and like trying to sell his compositions a couple years after we got the cat. And he ended up selling a composition of the Mario Brothers theme song that a woman in Minneapolis found, and said, hey, I'm doing this thing. She was a teacher. She said, hey, I'm doing this thing with my class about meeting composers, like modern composers. Can you come and talk? And so he was like super pumped about it. It was really exciting for him, right?
Mhm.
And so he went and had that first trip and then came back and everything was fine. And he was really excited about it. And then it started to go weird from there. And I remember that first time he went to Minneapolis, I called my best friend and I said, there's something wrong. I said, I don't know what it is. I don't trust this person. Something is wrong here. Like I just at 100% like sixth sense knew something was going to happen. So he then stayed in touch with her for the next year. And then she did the composer thing again. I think that was it. I think that was why. And so he went back out there. And this was our 6th anniversary. This is a few days before our 6th anniversary, like the weekend before. And we had planned to spend that anniversary like making a nice dinner at home.
And by the way, Jen is an expert, probably 5-star chef. She's a foodie.
Oh,
She's,
God,
she
not lately. I've been destroying
No, but
everything in the kitchen.
No, but I mean, it's not like, oh, what am I going to make for dinner? It's like you had something really special in
Yeah.
mind to prepare.
Yeah, and so I was out at the grocery store and ran into his uncle, and while he was supposed to be driving back from Minnesota to meet me for dinner for our anniversary. And I met his uncle at the grocery store and I said, oh, hey, how's it going? I'm going to make this awesome dinner and blah, blah, blah. We're going to eat dinner tonight. And then when I got home with the groceries, I had a text message from him that said, the weather is terrible. Like, I'm not going to make it. The weather's terrible. I'm really tired. I need to stay the night and come back in the morning. I'm like, okay. So I said, I would rather you stay there,
Be safe,
ride out the weather, and come home alive than come home in a casket.
Was it winter, snowy,
no, it was
thunderstorm?
just really bad thunderstorms. Our anniversary was in May. And so he came home the next day and he brought flowers, and then like things were just really weird. Like he was sleeping on the couch every night. He was like up all hours of the night. He was like just being really weird. And then 2 weeks later, I went on a work trip. So I generally, when it's not pandemic times, I do a lot of travel writing.
Mhm.
So I travel a lot. So I've gone to stay at a hotel in Elkhart Lake in Wisconsin. And I came back from that trip because he was ignoring me, and like I was being ghosted. Like he wasn't replying to my text messages. He wasn't answering the phone. He wasn't doing anything. And he had and the security camera in the house had gone offline. So I had messaged him to say, hey, the security camera is offline. Can you check it? Because sometimes the internet would go out. And he didn't reply, and he didn't reply, and he didn't reply. And I was like, okay, well, something's wrong here. So I'm going to go home. I'm going to make sure that everything's okay. And he was gone. He had moved out. He took all of his stuff. He took a bunch of my stuff. He took my cat.
The cat.
And he moved out. And he apparently had unplugged so I'll come back to that. So he had moved out. He took everything and moved out. And then I got an email a couple days later that was like, I filed for divorce. I live in Minnesota now. And I unplugged the security camera because I didn't want you to see me moving out. I'm like, okay.
Like, who does this?
He moved out at like 2 a.m. because he didn't want the neighbor to see. He didn't want the neighbor to see and call me. And she was awake. And she, after I like went over to her house a couple days later and told her what was going on, she was like, yeah, I was wondering what was going on. Like, I thought you guys were just getting rid of some stuff. I'm like, no.
At 2 a.m.
At 2 a.m.
Well, we were kind of night owls. I mean, I'm routinely up until 2 a.m.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, but yeah, it was odd.
Okay, so your initial response, if you could help us with that, what was your initial reaction?
My initial response was like, what the hell is going on? Like, I was
you can say the F word, it's okay.
I didn't even think about it in that situation.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a fucking asshole.
Oh, there you go.
But my initial response is like, what's going on? Where is he? Why is this happening? Like, what is the situation? And I had looked at we had a family plan cell phone package,
Mm-hmm.
and I had looked at the bill and had seen that every night since he'd gotten home, he'd been having these hours long discussions on the phone with the girl in Minneapolis. So they were like planning his escape, I guess.
Wow.
So I was understandably like completely devastated because I was really happy. Like, I knew that things were not, I thought we were like on a lull, like in a rough patch or something. I didn't expect what happened to happen.
Blindsided.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so, what did you do like after that? I think you said in one of your articles that the devastation then turned to anger, which is really a good thing because there's movement in anger. It's really actually
you have to get angry to move on.
Anger gets a bad rap sometimes because when you're angry, it can move you to the next best thought or feeling to take some action.
To take action.
Oh yeah, I got really mad.
If you're in full on despair, there's like no movement. It's just like still waters.
Right.
But, okay, so what would you do?
So at first, like in the full on despair time frame, my friend came up to visit. She and she stayed with me for a few days and tried to like help me through it. And then and then he had filed for divorce, and it turned out that he was like lying and like trying to gaslight me and string me along. And I got really pissed. So I like called him out on his shit on social media. And I was like,
oh, good.
Everybody, I was like, this is what's going on. And he had like, then he called me after that and he was like, if you ever want to get back together with me, you need to stop posting. And I was like, you could go fuck yourself.
I don't want to get back together with you.
Yeah. Well, he lied about his address on the divorce papers. He put it down as my address. He called the vet and said that I was a security risk so that they wouldn't give him his new address so I couldn't come get the cat. And he like,
wow.
He blocked everybody. He changed his phone number. So I couldn't get in contact with him about, like, he was ignoring my phone calls except for the ones that he picked up to try and like string me along and gaslight me into like giving him money or like just being nice about him online. Because he had blocked everybody and he had stopped answering my calls, and I knew he had lied about his address on the divorce papers. So we could not get divorced unless he shared his actual address.
Mm-hmm.
So I put on Facebook, because I was still friends with all of his family, I said, he will go to jail if he does not give me his address. I was like, this is the situation. This is what has happened. He will go to jail.
I feel your dad like coming through you, you know?
Yeah. And so then I was like, I don't know if he's staying with his girlfriend, and I used her name. I'm on the fence about using it now. I'm not really sure why, but I said, I don't know if he's staying with his girlfriend. I don't know if he's doing whatever, but I need to know his address. And so he called me to bitch me out because I had named the person that he was with online. He was like, you can't do that.
Yes, you can.
Yeah. He was like, that's an invasion of her privacy. And I'm like, I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
And I was like, look, I just need your address. Like, you lied about your address. And he was like, well, I didn't want you to track me down. And I was like, you think I want to deal with you? Like, I was like, no, the only reason I want your address is to get you the hell out of my life forever. Like, this is ridiculous. And so he gave me his address and then asked me for money.
Isn't that incredible that they put you through this? Yeah, and then, can I have some money?
Yeah. And he was like, well, you said before you would help me. And I was like, that was before you started dating somebody behind my back and moved out while I was out of town.
Yeah, before he turned into a complete jerk.
Yeah. So he asked me for money, and then we got off the phone, and then he just started like trying to make my life miserable and trying to make the whole divorce process miserable. And every time I did something new, I was turning it into like a little like running gag for myself to try and make myself feel better. Like I manage anger with humor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I started a series of Facebook posts called Chronicles of the Ex-Husband, and like have like the random shit that he would do, like reporting me to the vet or like lying about his address, or God, I'm trying to remember. I had to report him to the FBI. That was a fun one.
Wow.
Yeah, he tried to commit insurance fraud and identity theft with my information. He signed me up for a bunch of German dating websites. So these were all like different things that I was posting on Facebook and calling him out on his shit. That was really therapeutic.
Well, and this is
why German dating sites?
He was learning German. So the girlfriend speaks German. I'm pretty sure I feel like I remember him in the beginning saying that she knows German. And so he was learning German. Someone had told me, they like sent me a screenshot of something that he was learning German. And then suddenly I was getting signed up for all these dating sites, and I'm like, and then it was funny, like someone messaged me a few days ago and was like, I have news of your ex-husband. Do you want to hear it? And I was like, is he dead? Like, I don't really care. So, yeah.
And did you say no?
At first I was like, I don't care. And then I'm like, I'm really curious now. Like it's the journalist in me. Like if someone was like, do you want this information? Yeah. I'm like, wait a minute, what information?
Yeah.
So
I am curious. Yeah.
Yeah. And the information was something I already knew. So he is, or was, I don't know, a musician. And I was on his Bandcamp mailing list for some reason. Bandcamp is like a website that musicians upload their music to. And I was on his mailing list, and I had gotten an email that was like, he's released 2 new songs and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay. And then I read the email, and it was 2 songs that he had written like when we just started dating. Okay. like one of his big problematic things the whole time we were married was that he wasn't able to finish a song. And I'm like, so he's gaslighting everyone now. He's like, look at my brand new music. And I'm like, that is old music. And I think I might be the only one that knows that. Right. But yeah. So
2 things that you said there, if we could just jump in here for a second, is we always think that there's sort of a timeline of emotions, and we can go from despair, but it's really hard to go like on a long line. If you imagine a long line from despair to joy and bliss, right? You can't do that. And so you go from despair, and then maybe you move to anger, and then maybe the next step is revenge. And so when we've coached not only our coaching clients, but also the women in our discrete group, they are like apologetic. They're like, well, I did this thing, and just felt really good. And I was like, hey, revenge is part of it. I mean, and then you can move on from revenge until it's sort of the
we're not encouraging them to wallow in that, mind you, but
But it does wear off. I mean, that you feel in a moment, you feel like, oh, gotcha.
A little gotcha there for fun,
right. But then it wears off.
Yeah, I guess my revenge was like posting things online about it. I did have a few like passing thoughts, like I should make this like, it's ridiculous. I should make this like ransom note about something that he loves and send it to him anonymously and be like, I'm coming for you. And I was like, a little ridiculous. Like all these things that I was like, I could do this. That would be hilarious. But then I never did because I didn't want to put that much effort into it.
One of the things I'm thinking about, how many cases it's very hard when you are, as you said initially, very much in love and very smitten, and even though things hadn't gone well, it's often hard just to, even if you're done wrong, just still to did not feel like it was your fault, or what did I do to cause this? And I still want him. I still miss him. We hear, that's often a hard thing. Sounds like you really were able to push that aside quickly because of your anger.
Yeah, and I'm also really good at compartmentalizing, and I have an excellent therapist.
Okay.
And a lot of really good friends who help talk me through it. And
Good.
I generally, I'm a type of person where if I'm really upset about something, I decide fairly quickly that being upset is kind of a waste of time.
Yeah.
And if I'm going to be upset about something, I might as well do something to fix it. Like, I mean, take some sort of action to move forward, because and that's like when I started dating again, it was out of I'm so bored with being sad. Like, I just don't see the point anymore. I don't want this to be my life. And and so I just moved on.
So the gaslighting, if you could touch on that a little bit, because we deal with this all the time with our clients.
Yeah, and women are often, when they just kind of figure it out, they figure it out much after the fact too.
They don't realize.
It's like, oh my God! I mean, this whole time, this this game has been played, and I just completely missed it. And
well, and I think I at the beginning had a little bit of an idea what was going on, like when I said he was projecting, but I didn't know the term gaslighting to know what was going on.
Right.
I was just like, this is just how he deals with conflict. So
we always like Dr. Ramani. She has a lot of YouTube videos, and she talks a lot about narcissistic behavior and gaslighting. And she was recently on one of those Red Table Talks with Jada Plunkett Smith.
Okay, yeah.
And so she said something, and this happens all the time with our clients. They come to us and they go, I'm just going to forward you this email. Could you just read it? And is this gaslighting? And she says from the very beginning,
just because you're asking that question,
you're definitely being gaslit. So it was, I don't mean to smile about it. It just, it goes so much more deep than that. And then, but you had an experience where, and I know this rankles you and ruffles your feathers when people throw around gaslit when it's not gaslighting, it's just a disagreement.
Yeah, that really.
Would you share the difference? What's the distinction there?
So if you're being gaslit, the person who is gaslighting you is knowingly trying to manipulate you into either thinking that you're crazy, or that your memories are wrong, or that you don't know how to do something that you always did. They're trying to make you unsure of yourself. They
undermine you, right?
Yeah, exactly. All in an attempt for them to be able to control you. That is gaslighting. What people do now is if someone disagrees with them, they're like, oh, they're gaslighting me. I'm like, no, they aren't. Like, you're just having a disagreement. You have no idea what gaslighting is, or how torturous it is, or how much it hurts someone. And if you did, you wouldn't be sitting there saying, so-and-so said that I was wrong, so they're gaslighting me.
And it's one of the most, I think, masterful and sneaky forms of abuse that I can even come up with. Because it is so sly and so subversive. And where if you have a disagreement with someone, you just, kind of shrug your shoulders. So I agree with you. That would really bother me too, that they spill over into calling, widening the scope of gaslighting to include just a disagreement.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like, oh yeah, that's happened to me too. It's like, no. I want to move our conversation to another topic, because it was the article that kind of got it, that Puppy was showing me before, that because you've had the two marriages that didn't work. Okay. You've moved on and you're in a new relationship, and it sounds like it's going great.
It's wonderful.
You're about to get another cat.
Yay, I'm so excited.
Okay, but the article was kind of like questioning your self and confidence and being able to commit to this because of the other two marriages. So talk to us about as much as you can about, or you're comfortable with, about where are you with that?
Yeah, it's not the commitment that's a problem. I'm 100% fine being fully long-term committed for the rest of my life. It's the institution of marriage.
Okay.
That at this point, I'm like, I have done this twice. Twice it has not worked. Twice, right after I've gotten married, things immediately changed. And I think there's a fear there of not wanting that to happen again. And also, even though I know logically it's not my fault, there's a part of me that's like, you're going to screw this up. You're going to mess it up. You're going to have a third failed marriage and it's going to be your fault. And it's like, I know logically that that's not true.
So is it just the act of getting married that is the problem versus just being together?
Yeah, just the act of getting married.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So as someone who actually, Poppy, did this one time on a bit of a lark, she signed me up to become a minister so I could perform a wedding.
Universal Life Church.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I have performed a wedding, and I look at it kind of like, it's all it was me, basically signing a piece of paper that the sanctity of it is the commitment, as far as I'm concerned.
Mm-hmm.
It's the vows you give to each other, the piece of paper and the state stamping of that you're certified married. To me, it doesn't really mean a whole lot. It's the sanctity of, I love you, I'm committed to you, I want to spend my life with you, and you do it in front of friends and family and get their buy-in and their support and your God, if you want that as well. And so that's I'm wondering, to me, that's just a tiny part of it.
Yeah, my fear, I guess, is that, there is that sustained commitment. That's great. There was before. My fear is that suddenly I've said these vows, I've committed myself to this life together with this other person, like legally, and then suddenly, and then it fell apart. Mm-hmm. So there's a fear that even though we are 100% committed, maybe getting married will fuck it up.
Mm-hmm. Is he on the same page as you are? Does he care one way or the other?
I don't think so. I don't think it matters that much. He's divorced too.
If you both agree, and you're both committed, hey, that's good enough. I can see where, and I think even this is what we wanted to say, that what we found with coaching other people, and even from own experience, is that sometimes well-intentioned family and friends don't necessarily support you, and they continue to gaslight you, like, oh, but he was a good guy, or
are you sure you want to do this again?
All marriages have issues and all that stuff, and so you take that on, especially as women. I don't know, but I, for one, I'll take extra helpings of shame all day long if somebody doles it out. I used to anyway. I don't anymore, but I used to, and go like, oh my gosh, they're right. I'm this horrible person. I shouldn't have gotten divorced the second time.
Poppy and I actually got this, Jennifer, when, if you could imagine, all of a sudden I place a very innocent phone call to this woman from my past from 32 years ago, and discover instantaneously that I was completely wrong for my entire adult life about what I assumed, and that she never wanted to break up, neither did I. And I'm just, stunned. And the next thing you know, we are headlong right back into this relationship. Of course, we got a lot of crazy looks.
We lived in different states. Yeah. I was in Florida.
I was in North Carolina.
And so everybody
what?
Said, why would you pick up and move? Don't you think that's rushing it? You've been married twice. She's been married twice. And
there's a lot of well-meaning comments. Sure.
Right.
And a lot of jokes that are meant to be funny, but have a different type of layer to them. Like, I have a friend who once said, "Oh, I collect husbands." It's just like, okay, thanks. I don't know how to take that.
And when I got married, each time I changed my name. And then when I got divorced, I took my maiden name back, which if I hadn't done that, he probably wouldn't have called me.
That makes sense.
I saw that when I looked her up online, I saw her maiden name. I was like, oh, maiden name.
So, what I'm saying is that I've had, when I do legal forms or passports or anything like that, it's like, list all the names you've had. And it's like, okay, I need another piece of paper.
Her hand gets tired, right?
I only changed my name once. The first marriage, I changed my name, and then I changed it back. And I said, I am never doing this again.
Right.
It's such a hassle. I don't want to deal with it.
It is. So now I think I'm done now. But anyway, so what do you do to counter that when other people, even though they're well-meaning, they don't mean to, but they do gaslight you anyway?
I mean, just like I have said so many times, well, it's not about what you think. It's about me.
Good for you.
And how I feel. And then like, well, for my friend who said I collect husbands, like that's now like a running joke. So I've kind of turned it into something amusing. And like every time somebody said to me once, I'm impatient, and I was just like, it's why I can't keep a husband. Like it's kind of just,
so you make a joke of it.
Yeah,
yes,
I try to make a joke of it myself, like just to kind of counteract that. And I think if I'm really like truly upset about something, I will say, hey, that wasn't okay. Like that's not cool.
We have fun with this too. Poppy will say my ex-husband, and I'll go, which one?
Yeah, we do that here too.
So, but just for listeners out there, we have really good relationships with my ex-husbands.
That's really nice. I'm happy for that.
It's important that we do that because we share children, and they are the father of my children. So I didn't have the opportunity to go like, hey, see ya, that we do that. And
we tried to have a good relationship with my ex-wife that we shared the child with, and she wasn't open to it. So
some people are, some people aren't. It's crapshoot, I guess.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm very lucky that I did not have children from either of these marriages.
Did you feel supported during both of your divorces from family and friends?
My first one, no. But my friends, yes. But some people like really loved him. Like they thought he was a great guy, and like
the first husband,
and they didn't see like the problems.
Yeah.
So and it's fine. Like some people are still friends with him, and that's totally fine. Like I don't care. But we got divorced for a reason, and I need people to accept that. And eventually they did, but throughout the beginning of the process, they were like, you really need to just work on this. You need to like make sure that this is really what needs to happen. And I'm like, I am in this marriage. You are not in this marriage.
Perfect.
Like, please leave the decision-making to me. And
you know what? You're so strong and have such a clarity about you that's really admirable.
I was actually having a conversation about this the other day, that I'm very aware of how I feel about things the majority of the time.
Beautiful.
So if something happens, I'm not going to waffle on whether or not it's upset me. I'm going to know like within a couple minutes and be able to say, this is upsetting me.
Yes. Perfect.
So, yeah.
And I think that, for all these listeners out there, especially for the women that we work with, it was like, yes, definitely. We're going to make this like required listening for this podcast for our group. But I think that's so important because they do feel like wringing their hands. They're just, they don't, that certainty that they may have had once has been so eroded.
Or they're waiting for the, if they're in the middle of, a lot of these ladies are in the middle of leaving and, going through this process, and they're almost waiting for whatever he does. It's like
they're reacting.
They're waiting for, it's a reaction thing, not taking the, the first step when they're the ones who actually want to get out.
Well, there was a point for me when my second marriage ended that I was frustrated with myself. Because why didn't I end it? Why did I wait for it to get that bad? I said, I thought we were in a rough patch. And I think there's something to say about having the mindset of I'm staying to try and fix this, to try and make sure things can, like, to try and make sure I've exhausted every option. That people can really beat themselves up over if they were trying and the other person wasn't, and they feel like a failure on their part. And that I think keeps people in relationships maybe for longer than they need to be.
And I think a lot of that is for external opinion.
Oh, definitely. 100%.
So many people, I'd say 9 out of 10 of all of our clients, every single one of them will say, I'm just going to wait for one more thing, or I'm just going to wait till after Christmas,
we have a chapter in our book is wait until after the holidays.
Yeah.
I don't want to spoil the Christmas.
I'm going to try counseling one more time, or even though I've made a decision not to do it. And because they want to stop the the people that are on the outside going, well, did you try counseling?
Yeah. Well, and like for me, someone who's been divorced twice, like I tried so hard with the second marriage because
Right.
my mindset was, I don't want this to happen again.
Right.
Sure.
Like I need to make sure this one works because the last one
Right.
was such a spectacular disaster. Like, and so I know that kept me trying and kept me around and kept me like mentally like completely in love with him for much longer than I should have been.
And that's the part I was talking about, is that sometimes we sort of tiptoe into gaslighting ourselves to do these things that our inner core is screaming, no, 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 but we do it, we override it.
Yeah.
And that overriding is so bad. So how did you what can you say to inspire people to go from, despair to anger to revenge to the next step of moving on in a healthy way? Like, what did you do? You said you've been a journaler all your life, mostly your life.
The first 2 weeks after he left, I filled up 3 full journals.
Good
so
for you.
Write about it, like get your emotions out, whether that's writing or therapy or just going into your bedroom and screaming. Like, just if you're angry, you need to express the anger in some way.
And accept the anger, right?
Yeah.
Accept that do not beat yourself up if you're upset.
Yeah. And accepting the anger, it's important to know that accepting the anger is not the same as being okay with what happened.
Right, correct.
You can say, I accept that I'm angry about this, but it was not okay for him to disappear overnight. I did not deserve that. If you need to acknowledge that. You need to acknowledge that you're angry. And then that, I think, is the first step. And also, like, have a support network is so important. Like, without
so you
my
friends,
a really
my
good family.
Okay, good.
Yeah, they were behind me with the second divorce. 100%. Everybody hated him. So
that's good.
Well, Jennifer, if someone wanted to reach out to you, how do they find you?
Oh gosh, so many ways. So my website is jenniferbillock.com. I do, and that talks about like my journalism stuff, my writing, my books, and my writing coaching. And then I also run a podcast called Macabre Traveler with my friend Kristen. And I edit a newsletter called Kitchen Witch. That's about the intersection of food and witchcraft. I'm always around. My contact information is on my website.
And we'll put this in the show notes as well.
Yeah, cool.
Well, we thank you so much. You've really given us something to look forward to be able to share with other people. And if you've been gaslit, I promise you're not crazy. You're not imagining it. You're okay. You're just fine. And it's totally that projection that you were talking about initially from the other person.
And you will recover.
Yes, you can. You can move on to something better.
And
Absolutely.
we always say that, step into the fear, the anger, whatever that negative emotion is that, especially for women, I think we were told it's not polite to feel that emotion, right? And so
who cares?
I know, right? So I love that who cares attitude. I think that's really effective.
Yeah, I agree. It's useless to wonder, oh, what if so-and-so thinks blah, 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 blah. Like, what difference does it make? It's not about them. It's about you. Yeah.
So what is that expression that we always say? What anyone else says or thinks
none of my business.
That's true.
And then what we used to say to people that wanted to, I don't know why they were curious when, if you said, oh, I'm divorced or this didn't work out and they wanted to know why, I would just simply say these words: you don't know what you don't know.
Or they say things like, it all seemed like you guys seemed like you were doing fine,
Yeah. Oh, it's really fun with the way that I got divorced my second time. It really puts people in their place. We're like, well, why did you get divorced? Like, why didn't you try to fix it? I'm like, well, he abandoned me overnight and stole my cat. So
kind of took care of that.
Yeah. Like, not my fault.
But I mean, I can see people out there, women out there that are going to be jealous. So it's like, oh, well, he didn't blindside me and take my cat. we just, it eroded over time.
I wish he'd been
Yeah.
that mean, so I could have a better reason.
So they
It
like-
was a lot easier to move on.
Yeah,
knowing
it
that
is.
he was a total asshole. Like
Right.
the first divorce, like we were still on relatively good terms when we got
Mhm.
divorced. So it was harder
Mhm.
to move
It's hard to
forward.
explain to people,
Right.
and that's the whole thing. It's like you don't need to explain.
Mhm.
You don't need to do that, right?
Absolutely. It's nobody's business but your own.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for
Oh my
being
gosh,
our
so
guest. It's
excited.
been a
Thank
joy to
you.
get to know you.
Yeah, thanks for having
And
me.
we look forward to reading your next article.
And
Yay.
we're digging into the Milwaukee
Yeah.
restaurant book too.
Oh yeah, I've got a new book coming out too. If you wanted.
Oh, what is it? What is
It's
it?
Chicago's Historic Bakeries. It'll be out next year.
Okay.
Yeah.
In
So
2022.
In
We'll have to make
2022.
we'll make a trip to Chicago to enjoy that.
Excellent.
All right. Thanks to all for the Relationship Restaurant. If you want to find us, poppyandjeff.com, POPPYANDGEOFF.com, and you can reach out to us anytime.
Until next time.
Thank you. Bye.